Welcome, Amaris, to my YouTube channel. Amaris and I met last May. She was on a program that I had for ex-Jehovah's Witness women called Find Your Truth. It was a program for ex-Jehovah's Witness women to find out who they are outside their organization, and she was one of my clients. So thank you, Amaris, for being on my channel. Amaris started her own YouTube channel just a little bit ago. And once I saw her content, I was like, Amaris, I would love to have you on so you could share your story with us here on my channel. So without further ado, Amaris, if you can just share how the Jehovah's Witnesses came into your life.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me on your channel, Vivian. She was one of my inspirations for starting my own. And I've watched so many of Vivian's videos as well. So that was kind of what got me into sharing my story. So what got my family into Jehovah's Witnesses? My parents actually divorced when I was in the fourth grade, and that was around the time that the first witness knocked on our door. My dad ended up staying in the house that my parents purchased together, and my mom ended up moving out. And we actually had a woman knock on the door, and that was when my dad started studying. So shortly after that, she then connected him with a brother in one of the local congregations. And my dad was trying to sell the house, and he was going through the divorce, and at the same time, while all that was happening, the first witnesses started coming over to study with my dad. And eventually, that brother happened to have a daughter who was like around my age. So she started coming over with him as well. So that was kind of like how I slowly got into it. And then my dad sold the house that him and my mom had purchased together. He finally ended up selling it. And then I would kind of say, like, from around that point on, like, it was a whole new life. He got baptized. We lived in a whole new place. We were in the same town still, but
How old were you at this point?
he was. I was in the fifth grade. I think it was pretty quick. It was about maybe like a year of that. So yeah, not quite into middle school. Mhm.
Okay, and then after that, you said your dad got baptized, and then what was life like for you? You were living with your father at the time.
Correct. Yeah. So for a while, like my parents had joint custody, and then eventually, like joint custody arrangements, they sometimes kind of like take their own form, and you know, that's kind of what happened with us. And I just naturally kind of stayed with my dad more. So by that point, once he was baptized, I would say him and I were going to meetings very regularly. At the time, there was still the midweek meeting in addition to the service meeting. So I want to say that was like on Tuesdays, the book study at the brother's house. And then we also had the service meeting. We were starting to go out on field service on Saturdays. And we also had the Sunday meetings. So by that period between like elementary school to middle school, but we were doing everything by then. Like we had stopped celebrating like birthdays, holidays, Halloween, everything, and our whole daily life was like revolving around JW at that point.
And what was the situation like? Because your mom wasn't a witness, and then your dad was a witness. When you visited your mom, was did you just live like a normal non-Jehovah's Witness life? Did you celebrate holidays and birthdays with your mom, or was that something that your mom respected, that this is a new rule that was set by your dad?
Yeah. I think because I was getting so into it and I was really taking it on as my own, my mom just she just kind of respected it. Like I don't really remember her like saying like, "Oh, why are you becoming a witness?" And it was just kind of like, "Oh, she's doing you know what she wants to do now, and she's doing like what she's learning from her dad." So my mom, she would definitely still celebrate holidays, birthdays, but I slowly stopped like myself participating. So it was definitely weird. I think it was kind of a lot as a kid to like navigate all of that. Um, but I would definitely say that as I got, into middle school and stuff, and I started like spending more time with my dad and started living full time with my dad. By that point, my mom and my brothers, who are also not witnesses, they kind of knew, like my mom and my brothers, they kind of knew, okay, Amaris is like a witness now. So yeah, so we were kind of, split, kind of weird. Um, my brothers had also attended some meetings, especially when they would visit my dad and stay with my dad, but they never got into it like I did. Um, they, wouldn't pay attention. They were like always doing something, always talking to each other. So they never really took it on like I did.
So this brings you into your teens-ish. Then, at what point did you get baptized, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I got baptized when I was 14. I was a freshman in high school, and what was that like? It was wow. I mean, it was definitely a decision that I don't think I was in a good spot to make, just because um, there was so much going on with my family, and I was so influenced by the adults in the congregation who were sort of taking me under their wing, and who I kind of felt some pressure from to get baptized. Because I'm sure, like people get baptized at like 11, 12, 10 years old. So I kind of had in my mind at that point that being like 14, I was like, I should have been baptized already, which is kind of ridiculous because I wasn't born into the religion. And, I had so much pressure, not just from my family, but from people in the congregation. Like I was just totally not equipped to make that kind of decision, but I did. And I went through the 3 rounds of questioning, which I had absorbed so much of the literature and the teachings that it was easy to kind of get through those rounds. Um, Not easy, but you know what I mean? Like we went through it, where you're just like answering the questions. It's like it just sort of, I was trained to do it.
So then at that,
So yes,
yeah,
so
go
after I went through those,
go ahead.
mhm. Oh, yep. And then I was just going to say, so after I went through those 3 rounds, and kind of made that decision, I was baptized at an assembly or a circuit assembly. Um, and yeah, and after that, we went out to eat at like a Mexican restaurant, and I kind of knew like, okay, I'm a witness, and like this is um, what the next 4 years of my high school are also going to be like as me being a witness. Like at that point, I didn't think about you know, ever stopping or changing my mind. So yeah.
Then this brings you into high school, in your teen years, where it's like the most difficult time for any human being. Your body's changing, your hormones are going. You get baptized, feel the pressure. Um, and then what is high school like for you? Because I know that after high school is when you left. So talk to me about like the time between when you got baptized and after that.
Yeah. So I think when I was in high school, like you said, things got a lot harder. Oops. All my friends were now witnesses pretty much. So I just didn't really have like a group in high school. I was part of the orchestra actually in middle school. I had played the cello and I really, really loved it. I was actually getting um, pretty good at it. And I joined orchestra like my freshman year of high school. But because of all of the holiday songs and the holiday music and just all the things that I wouldn't be able to participate in, I dropped that. So during my high school years, like I would say through like freshman to like junior year, I just kind of stuck to myself, um, and just kind of knew like, okay, my friends and my social life are like JW, it's like outside of high school. Like I would bring like a book to read in high school during the day, and I would just like do that in my free time instead of like socializing. And it was kind of lonely, to be honest. At least when I was there in high school, to kind of be like surrounded by like, people who were doing all like the normal teen stuff. And, I kind of felt like I had this like whole other life, like this JW life. And I have friends and like there were social activities, as being a JW, but no one knows about that at high school. So when I was in school, I was just kind of to myself. Um, and yeah, and I didn't do any sports and the whole business. Like I didn't do anything like that. So
And at what point did you start waking up?
yeah, I started waking up was that I started having severe back pain the summer going into my senior year of high school. And I had always kind of had back problems, but I didn't, it got to the point where it was unbearable. So we went to the doctor and I found out that I was going to need surgery for it. And the surgery was scheduled for October of that year, October of my senior year. Um, and kind of leading up to that and after that, that was when I started waking up. I was also for the first time thinking about what I was going to do after college, and I started getting a lot of anxiety about that because um, I just didn't know what I was going to do because you turn 18 and you graduate from high school, and it's like, so what are your plans for life? And I was kind of looking at people who were regular pioneering and auxiliary pioneering and doing other things on the side, and I just didn't know if I really saw myself doing that.
So talk to me a little bit about the surgery that you had and what it did for you.
Yeah, so for the surgery there were quite a few appointments leading up to it, and the surgeon who we went to was in greater Detroit, which was like an hour from us. And so we would drive down there and have the appointment with the surgeon and come back, and we did that a few times, like getting x-rays and getting all kinds of stuff done. And on one of the trips that we went down, the surgeon was asking me about like a blood transfusion. If I needed one during the surgery, would I want them to give me a blood transfusion? And I don't know like why he asked me that, because I was 17 at the time, so I don't know if like if as a minor, like how that worked, or if my dad still had control over it. But he definitely asked me specifically um, if I would want a blood transfusion. And I don't know what prompted me to, because by that point, I don't think I was consciously like aware that I was pulling away, but I said yes, that I would want a blood transfusion. Um, and then my dad, he was also in the room. Actually, in the room, it was only my dad, the surgeon, and myself. So it was very like on the spot, like there was no way that my dad missed what I had said. Like I definitely said yes, I would like a blood transfusion. Um and I don't believe my dad ever really brought that up with me again. I even had the blood card once I had gotten baptized. I even had signed like the blood card and everything. I think it might even still be somewhere if I were to like look it up. But yeah, and after that, I went through my surgery. It was scheduled for like the beginning of October. Um, Definitely one of the most painful things I've ever been through. I was in the hospital for like a week after that, and then I was on bed rest for like a month. Not bed rest, but just light activity and like staying home from school. And then during that time, it was pretty much like all of October and like part of November. I was reading a lot of the literature. I knew that by that point I was having like a crisis of faith and a crisis like in my conscience, where I was just like, I don't know what I believe right now. And so I used a lot of that time to research And that was my first time also just like Googling Jehovah's Witnesses and kind of stepping into that realm of like questioning. Like that was the first time that I did that. I also watched a lot of like bad reality shows when I was on bed rest, which I had not done before. And um, I was not going to meetings. I was not going on field service. So in a weird way, I think that was kind of the first time that I was like, I don't know, maybe like a little bit, of a normal teenager kind of thing, like doing what a normal teenager would do, like sleeping in on Saturdays. And I'm not sure if that makes sense, but
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So here you are, 17, you had the surgery, you're starting to like be a normal person. And what happens
yeah.
after this? Your dad knows that you were okay with getting a blood transfusion. What happens after that?
Yeah. So I started slowly like going back to school and then going back to meetings. And I just remember like, oh, it was so hard to go back to meetings. And I mean, on the one hand, it was nice because I was like seeing people again, and there was kind of, um, and people were very nice and like asking how I was doing. And, but I knew something was different by that point. Like my heart had changed, the doubts had started coming up again. Like I just remember thinking one of the big things I struggled with was the idea of like only JWs kind of being saved, and like I had family who weren't Jehovah's Witness, and I had taken, like history classes in high school and all this stuff, and it had just expanded my mind about like how many other people there are and how many different faiths there are. And for the first time, I was like, wow, that really doesn't sit right with me. That someone, that someone might be killed just because they're a different faith, or might not be saved because they're not following JW. And you know, I'm sure you kind of know how they like kind of tiptoe around that belief that they have, but it's there. And I really struggle with that.
So then what happens after you're waking up and learning all of this? And what is your response of your father in the congregation?
Mhm. So I think for a few months I was, I guess you could call it PMO is the term that I learned, physically and mentally out. So I was kind of PMO like through the rest of that year, through like 2012. Um, because I just didn't know what to do. And I was recovering from the surgery. I had all this like bandaging and stuff on my back. And I was just like, okay, I just have to get back to school, get back to meetings. So I was PMO for a few months. And then leading into the spring, I started feeling better. And actually, while I was on bed rest, I had applied to 3 colleges. Um, and so by the spring, I was kind of starting to like hear back. I was also healing like physically. I was pretty much like, doing everything like normal. And I actually ended up getting my first job in the spring before I had graduated from high school. And that was when I stopped kind of going to meetings and I stopped going out in service. And for a while, I don't think people really noticed or caught on. And then eventually they did. Like I had a brother kind of reach out to my dad and bring it up with my dad, that like I wasn't really going out in field service, that my time cards, or what they called time reports, that they were looking really, really low and measly. Like I would only have placed like one magazine or something, and like I was only doing like 3 hours in service a month. And so it just kind of ballooned into like this problem that like I couldn't really ignore anymore. So by the fall, by the fall of 2013, I had sent a letter of dissociation, and I was actually told by my dad that if I left, that we could still have a relationship as long as we didn't talk about like spiritual matters or spiritual things, I think is the term that they use. And then sort of like slowly over the years, like his contact has been like less and less. And now does not speak to me. But that was kind of how things happened, was like in 2013, I just um, kind of slowly pulled away. And then I just, at one point, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't, I couldn't do it anymore. I guess it's just the best way that I could put it. Like, I was getting sick, I could feel my body kind of um, like breaking down a little bit. I just was going through a lot. And I realized that it was probably because I wasn't, taking a stand. And that was when I kind of decided to leave and to take a chance on a new life.
Okay, so that the transition after you started getting better and your dad was slowly trying to pull away, and then you went off to college. So what was the relationship like with your dad as you went to college? Like, what kind of advice did he give you? When I know you said that he said initially that you guys were going to have a relationship. So were you guys already having a relationship then at that point when you went away to college?
Yeah, it was slowly starting to change. Like, um, he seemed happy for me in a sense. And just to give a little bit of background, my dad, he converted like a lot later in life. Like, I think he was into his 50s by the time he converted. And my dad actually went to college and he went to law school. He served in the army to pay his way through school. I mean, he had a whole nother life before being a Jehovah's Witness. And so I think he was also torn. Like, he for example, he moved me into my dorm, but then whenever I would kind of come home, whether it was like on the weekends or for a holiday or something, like they kind of slowly stopped inviting me to like social things. And so it was definitely starting to change, but I think he struggled with whatever they were telling him, to like have less of relate to have less of a relationship with me. Because towards the beginning, he did do small things, like he would move me into my dorm, and he like took me to Target to get a few things. Um, and also his background of like going to college, like I think he kind of knew that that was a smart choice, or that was a reasonable choice to make. And um, yeah, but definitely even within those first months of me like having gone away to school, I did kind of notice like by the end of even like 2013 that he was pulling away, and not like answering my calls, not only talking to me if it was about something important, or if it had to do with like something around the house, or I'm not sure exactly what they were telling him, but I know that they were kind of in his ear and telling him, oh, you can only talk about this with her or do this with her. And so it was really sad to see that, and that was really hard to go through.
I can imagine, especially because you had a relationship with him prior to, and then, I mean, that was 10 years ago. So that was 2013. Now we're at 10 years ago, 2023. So I know that since we've been working together, you've moved out of Michigan, which is super awesome. So talk to us about your life in the last 10 years. What has happened for you, and what are you up to now?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I recently moved out of Michigan. This was last year, and in the years since I've left, some of the biggest things I've done would be definitely graduating from college in 4 years, which I'm really happy about. It didn't take too much longer than that. I've traveled to Europe. I've been to France, which is something that I really had always wanted to do because I took French in middle school and high school and in college. Um, and I hope to even like maybe live there for a month or something like that. Um, I'm also picking up some of my fiction writing again. I used to write fiction like in middle school, like before, um, when I was kind of like halfway in JW, halfway out. And I've started picking that up again. And yeah, and I just have made like new friends. I've reconnected with family who I had kind of been so distant from when I was JW because you're not going to Thanksgiving, you're not going to Christmas, you're not celebrating people's birthdays. So there really wasn't a lot of occasions that I was around for. And in the years since I've left, I've celebrated so many holidays, just not only with my mom's side of the family, but with my dad's side of the family. So many memories that I wouldn't have made if I had stayed JW. My mom's mom actually passed away in my sophomore year of college. And if I had remained at JW, I wouldn't have had those like 2 years with her because she lived in Detroit. And so I was able to visit her and spend some time with her just because I was closer to her. And because I had left JW, we had kind of, reignited our relationship. And yeah, so there's just been so much. That's just like the surface.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. And in the last year of you even moving out of Michigan, what has that been like for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's been challenging on the one hand. Like I'm there, so it's kind of like big city compared to like Michigan, and it's been a big adjustment, like just how fast things are here and everything that there's to do and the stimulation. But there's so much to do here. I have felt so welcomed by people and just really happy that I did it, even though it was hard and even though I've had to learn new things like how to parallel park because you have to know how to parallel park in DC. Like you have to know that. um, but I've met so many people who are doing like incredible things, who work in just incredible industries and yeah, so even though it's been like challenging and like definitely in the beginning, I was like scared and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm really happy that I did it.
I am so proud of you because I know that was a conversation we had when we were working together of you transitioning and moving out. So it takes a lot of courage to do that. So I'm super proud of you. And I know, like I said, you just shared your story recently on your YouTube channel, which I'm going to link in the description box. So tell me a little bit about what made you start your own YouTube channel and what has that done for you as far as just like letting out your story as an ex-witness?
Yeah. Oh, and also Vivian's from Michigan as well. So we literally had this conversation like last year where she was like encouraging me. She's like, where do you want to go, just do it. And I just remember it feeling so impossible. Like I feel like I gave her like a list of reasons like why I couldn't do it. And then, lo and behold, things worked out and I did it like last year, August of last year. So yeah, thank you to Vivian for that, for that encouragement. And then you had said, oh, starting my own channel. So I started my channel at the end of August this year. Um, and let me tell you, the nerves were really high. Like I was very, very scared to put my story out there just because my thoughts were like, what if my dad finds it? What if my stepmom finds it? What if, someone finds it and then tells my dad about it? And um, so far, I haven't heard anything from him. I haven't gotten any like messages about it. And on top of that, most of the response has been really positive, and like a lot of people have either empathized with me if they are an XW and they kind of know what it's like, or they've learned something new and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that." You know, JWs practice shunning or practice this fellowshipping. Um, so I'm really happy that I did it, and I'm starting to learn though that like fear is it's okay to feel it and then just do it anyways. Um, and yeah, so similar to like moving out here, like I took that same approach. I was like, yeah, this is scaring me. Like my anxiety is up to here, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
I love that. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the presence of fear, but still doing it anyway. So And with everything, every time you're more courageous in the face of fear, that courage muscle just builds and builds. So you're building on your courage muscle, which allows you to be more courageous in scarier situations. And this is a huge leap of faith for you to leave your hometown, which, yeah, like you said, we were both from Michigan. So I was just like gunning for you to leave, like, go, Amaris. I'm so proud of you that you've done this and now that you've been out for as long as you have. So thank you so much for this interview. But before you leave, is there anything that you feel like you missed out on that you want to add to this interview?
Um, No, I mean, I guess just that quote that you had said about courage and like, and I would also add like developing my own faith has really, really helped me because you had mentioned when we were in the group together about making, you know, JW small and making ourselves, larger because when you're in it, you feel small and JW feels very large. And so I think in addition to like you said working that courage muscle, I've also have developed my own faith and my own belief in a higher power that has made JW not seem as powerful anymore in my life and has made me feel like, no matter what, I know my own truth at the end of the day. And like, I still believe in a higher power. And that's something that they cannot take away from me. Um, so yeah, so that's just the only thing that I would add.
Beautiful. I love it. Makes me really happy. I feel like you're a big mama to you. And that makes me super happy that you've taken that to heart. Um, Also, if you made it this far to the interview, sorry for I was gonna say jet lag, the lagging. I do live in Costa Rica currently, and the internet is definitely not the best. So thank you so much for tuning in and for watching this interview with Amaris. Until